And it's still there. Okay, I think that was our deal.
We got the green light,
Yep, hide the folks on the right.
the folks on the right.
You just hit the minus button on top.
There we go. Teamwork.
Okay.
All right, we're off and running. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's Redlands program. Okay, Christine Pense, you're well known to us and well known to the Grouse community, and we're so excited to have you here tonight. We have flying birds in the room, tents in the room, and probably the award for the most unique and creative title for a program. Come on up, Christine, thank you. All right.
Well, thanks so much for having me and giving me, that's all right, an opportunity to share with you this project that I've been working on with Sandy Zelasko. She's the one on the left up there, that we've been working on for the last 4 years. And we keep working. It just gives us something to do when we get to this early months of end of winter, beginning of spring. So
Speak up a little bit louder.
there we go.
Yep, talk to the back.
I'll try. I don't have a very deep voice anymore. So why grouse? First off, do you even have a clue what a grouse is? I didn't either. Sandy sort of knew, but we really didn't know until this whole project started. Well, they're beautiful birds. And so I'm going to share some images with you about these birds. And we've only looked at a certain number of them, and there are several more that we have to discover. So it gives us a great project until some of us can't move anymore. So they're beautiful. They're fun to photograph, and especially during the mating season. And you'll see that in terms of the images and a couple of video clips where you see them hopping all over and chasing each other. And it's just exciting. And they're big enough you can see them. Little bit bigger than those eagles that are flying that we're going to pretend that they are grouse in the back. They're endangered. And almost all of them are on some form of the endangered list. So that's what makes them interesting for us, is because they're on the endangered list. Why are they endangered? What's going on? And that gave rise to the project on what to do when you've got endangered birds and why are they endangered. It gave us something to study and to write about. So grouse photography can help sell habitat preservation because the grouse is sexy. Grass is not sexy unless you're one of those people that studies grass. So the grouse is going to be what we use to entice people to think about where it is we're living and what we're doing to our community. Next. So we've been going to assorted mating leks where these grouse in the late winter, early spring, where they come to do their thing. And most of them look a little like this. Almost nothing from what we would be attracted to. There'll be some low grasses, there'll be some low sage grass on the ones that we've been studying. There's some that are in the trees, but we're not doing those. We're looking at the ones that are on prairie lands, basically, or grasslands. And so it looks like this. Nothing. Well, how do you find the nothing? Well, first we have to figure out which grouse we're going to go after. So you'll see that we have sage grouse, prairie grouse that we've been working on. There are forest grouse and there are ptarmigan grouse. We haven't been working on them, though we see them now and again. We haven't been studying them yet. So this is the order is the galliform. The Faisandae is the family, and the subfamily is the Faisandae, and we may say it a little differently. And the particular tribe, depending upon which one we're looking at, is going to be a tetraonini. Never get say it right in Latin. So they're medium to large game birds. They basically are about the size of a chicken. but they're shaped a little bit differently. Most of them have feathered legs. Well, when you see where they are in the winter, they got to keep those legs warm. So the feathers are there to help with that. The male is usually the larger one and the female is the smaller one. The inverse of what we see with eagles, where the female is the big one and the male is the small one. So interesting to see that's what happens. And the males are extremely colorful relative to the female. Well, that's not unusual, but that's how we're going to tell them apart. Next one. So where are these birds? In fact, there's several all over the world, but the ones we've been looking at are primarily in the US, in the western part of the US. Well, how do you find them? It's all top secret. You can't just go to the internet, type in LEC and hope you're going to find it. So this top secret means there's a whole lot of sleuthing work that goes on to find a farmer, find a rancher, find a hunter, find somebody from the Forest and Game Service, somebody that will talk with you, another photographer maybe, that will talk with you and help you figure out where these birds are going to be, at least within a couple of miles of where they're going to be, so you know how to go find it. So 95% of these birds are on private lands. So a good part of our western US is already owned, and it's not government owned. So where these birds are behind barbed wire fences, behind big gates. So you got to make your deals. You got to find out who to make the deals with. So we did it. We figured it out. Not 100%, but we've done pretty well at figuring out where these birds are going to be. I'm not sure you can see with this light on in the back. Is there a light that cuts in? Is there a light for just this area? Yeah, better. Okay, so the first three here we're looking at are the lesser prairie chicken, the sharp-tailed grouse, and the greater sage grouse. We will go on to look at the greater prairie chicken and the Atwater prairie chicken. So those are the ones that we have studied thus far. So the lesser prairie chicken, you know, it's a little hard to tell the differences unless you have them all together. Between the lesser and the greater, it's going to be hard because they look very similar. And the Atwater also looks very similar. It's a part of the greater prairie chicken. But anyway, there you are. You have a chicken. You see the gullier sac here? Yeah. And then the one on the left, and the lesser prairie chicken, he's going to be primarily in areas like Nebraska, Kansas, down into Texas, really open prairies. And he likes taller grasses. So in the summer, you can see that it's tall grass. In the winter, under the snow and so on, you don't necessarily see that it's tall grass. But that's where he likes to hang out. They eat insects. They don't eat they don't eat each other. They don't eat meat. They eat primarily insects. They nest in the ground, and they nest very close to their mating leks, and they will forage in the ground. So you're going to see in one of the little videos how they go about doing that. The next one is the sharp-tailed grouse, and the sharp-tailed grouse we saw again in Nebraska, but we also saw it up in places like Wall, South Dakota. So they move further north, further toward South Dakota, North Dakota, toward Canada. They too like grasslands, but they will have a little bit of the sage around them that will interest them. And they also eat plants. Not so much the bugs. They're ground nesters, and they again forage in the ground. They're a little harder to photograph in the sense that the sage that's around where they're hiding, there's not enough height distance, and so to get an area where it's clear and clean to see them, it's a little harder. The greater sage grouse, and we were talking a little earlier about the greater sage grouse. The greater sage grouse, we have some here in California, Oregon, Nevada, that were called the bi-state sage grouse. I don't know, did you ever get to see them, Jim?
I don't know, Christine. I think I've only seen a dusky grouse up there.
Okay, they're hard to find here in California because usually when we have access, it's snowing and then we don't have access, so we can't get up to where they are. But anyway, they like the sage steppe, and the sage steppe is going to be in areas like Utah, Wyoming, where you have the bigger sage plants. They eat the sage, they don't eat bugs except for the first few days of their lives. That's a little like colostrum for women. That's what the bugs are for them. So anyway, they eat the sage. They too will nest in the ground very close to the mating leks, and they too will forage in the ground, not in the tree.
What's the big white thing on, like?
I'm gonna show you,
Oh,
we're
okay.
coming to it. Good
Yeah.
question. You're gonna get to see the whole thing. Anyway, then the greater prairie chicken, so the greater prairie chicken and the lesser prairie chicken, unless you see them next to each other, it's a little hard to tell them apart. And they have created hybrids between the two of them so that we really can't tell them apart because this third version of them is going to be a little of this one, a little of that one. So theoretically, they have a more of a yellowy gum sac than the lesser one. They too will eat seeds. The grouse, the sage grouse, doesn't eat the seed. He can't chew it. But the prairie chicken will. And then we come to the Atwater prairie chicken. Now he is really endangered to the point there were only like 90 birds left about 20 years ago. Then we're back up to 20 or 200, maybe 400, not sure, because of these captive bird raising programs that went into place to try and recover it. The other hen in that same series that we didn't, bird in that same series of the greater prairie chicken was the heath hen. The heath hen was over in the East Coast, in Cape Cod, and we got so busy eating them, then there are none left. So they decided not to let that happen to the greater prairie, to the Atwater's prairie chicken. And so its only place where it is in Texas, sort of a little southwest of Houston, in only 2 places, and talk about top secret. Very difficult to locate. So we'll give you a scoop on that one next. These are some relatives of the grouse that we don't think about being grouse. The first year when Sandy and I took off, we left out of San Diego, and what we see in the field as we were walking, driving along, wild turkeys. So they're part of the grouse, but not in the same species. The peacock, the ring-necked pheasants, we see them over in San Jacinto these days. Doesn't look like a chicken though, does it? And then you have the chukars, or chuckers, that look a little bit like a quail. You see them primarily up in the northern climates like Wyoming and Montana, and quail. Next. So how do we get started on this exploration? We were up in Utah in Salt Lake City area. Sandy was running some kind of workshop on birds and other animals on Antelope Island. We ran into this fellow at the big river, Bear River Preserve. Have you seen the sage grouse? Well, no. Where is he? Top secret. Well, he's on this road near this intersection with this sign. I mean, it was totally impossible. So we said, okay, we're going to find it. And we got up at 3 in the morning. We drove over the mountain. No GPS coordinates, nothing. We had to just kind of figure out what it was he was talking about with this road. Oh, and by the way, it's near a farm. It's 3 in the morning. You can't see anything. There's no moon. There's no headlight. There's nothing. You can't see it. Somehow or other, we found it. And we found the spot right on the edge of the road. We pull up to the edge of the road and we said, it's not possible. Are these the birds? And there they are, doing what they're doing, mating right there. This is now about 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning. We can almost see them, and they're doing their thing. So the male is the one with the big collar, and the females are all lining up to get their turn. I said, well, that's really kind of interesting. It's 18 degrees. It's so cold. We're using our car as a blind. We've got everything on we own. We've got our blankets on. You've got the windows open because you got to take your pictures. They're totally ridiculous. Yeah, well, we didn't have enough. We came the next day to do it again. So we could be sure that this was really what we were seeing. Well, the action, and you're going to see in a moment, the action is very quick. They fly in before the sun thinks about coming up. They do their thing. They're very busy for X number of minutes, maybe hours, but not many. The sun comes up. You got about an hour of almost decent pictures, and they fly out all at once. You don't believe it. Well, maybe they'll come back. And they didn't come back. Prairie chickens will come back, but the sage grouse did not come back. They flew out. That was it. Tough bananas if you didn't get your picture. So 2 days before we saw that, we said, now this is really cool. We've got to study this.
Christine, how do they fly, like chickens?
No, they fly like birds, more or less. They're not very graceful. So we got to get to where these birds are. And they're never, except for that greater sage grouse, they're not right there next to the road. They're off in the most impossible areas to get to. So we rented our 4-wheel drive. We were all prepared for all the weather. We didn't realize in some places, well, they're next to the cows. So you got to go through the cow pasture, which means you got to lift up that big fence that holds the cows in the cow pasture. Well, in the daytime, see, it looks like this. At nighttime, you can't see it. And if it happens to have rained or snowed or done iced or something, you can't see what you're getting into. So here are these 2 ladies, like we had good sense, taking off to get the pictures. In this case, we were off looking for the Sharpies, sharp-tailed grouse. And the conditions are really difficult. So you got to expect that. That's going to be part of the deal. If they're not going to be sitting there right next to you, maybe, but not usually. Well, how do you know you found the spot? You saw that picture in the beginning, that big blank field with nothing going on. Well, a lot of big blank fields in the Midwest and Southwest. There are a lot of areas that look just like that. How do you know you got there? Well, you got to go out and inspect it. So you can't inspect it at night because you won't see much. So you got to go in the daytime to inspect it, and you're going to look at feathers. You're going to look at chicken poop. It'll be sitting around. Different kinds of feathers, different kind of chicken poop. And in some places, we were in Kansas, and they had made our life a little easier because they had staked out where some of these were with these little pink flags. So you had to find the pink flags. So if you found that, then you knew that that's where they were theoretically going to come. There's still no guarantee, but you know they have come, and the poop looks a little fresh, and the feathers don't look totally, disturbed, then you know you found an area where they're going to come. Typically, they come back to the same lek every year, or they leave entirely and don't come back at all. So we were going for the typical, let's hope they come back. Well, then it's time to set up being ready to take the pictures when the birds are there, and you can't just walk in at 10 in the morning when you get your picture. Except for those sage grouse that were right out of the side of the car, most of the time you got to get to this lek. So this is the 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You got to be set up at least an hour ahead of time. These birds are already there. And you'll see a little video in a second here where you can hear them making their little sounds depending upon which one they are. You can't see a thing, but you hear them, so you know you've got this place. Well, which way are you going to place the tent? Well, which way are they going to come to take the picture? Well, where's the sun going to be? Well, wait a minute, we got a full moon. How's that going to affect what we're going to see with the birds? You see all this stuff you have to think about before you even set up your tents. Now, in some places, wildlife people have been really helpful. They've already put in a box. Where do you see this box? They've already put in a box, and so you don't have to worry about it. That box is facing in the right direction. All you gotta do is figure out where the box is in the dark and how to get into it in the dark and hope nothing else is in the box in the dark. And it's cold. So here we are in the box. This is Wall, South Dakota. Really nowhere. It was so cold. We didn't think about getting one of these little heaters that you can get, that you can put in there with you. It probably smells, I don't know. We never did get that figured out. But here was the box, and you get in and you see the wind blowing, those little flaps. It was so cold in that box, we finally decided staying in the car was a good idea. So some of these things are things you're gonna wanna think about when you put your list together of what's the stuff that you're going to take. I put the tent here tonight so you can get an idea of what a tent looks like. This one is a see-through tent from the inside out, but not from the outside in. So the birds can't see you, theoretically. They actually don't care much about you, but theoretically they can't see you. So you're gonna have to make sure you've got something comfortable to sit in. You're gonna be there for a long time. The worst part is that early morning when there's no light and you hear them and you can all of a sudden almost see them and you're desperate to take pictures. So you take pictures anyway and you're using up your card, they're using up your batteries. And then finally you can see the bird. And you almost don't have any battery left. So you can imagine the drama. Anyway, so you gotta have your camera gear packed, lots of batteries. Remember, it's cold and batteries when they're cold, they don't like that. So you have to find a way to get them on your body so you can keep them warm. Well, I mean, you got everything else on your body. Just we'll add some more. You're gonna need your cell phone, why not? Because sometimes, and most of these little videos were taken with the cell phone because I was too busy with the stills on my camera to think about taking the video on my camera and taking the stills. You just get busy. Tripods, batteries, memory cards, you have all that stuff. You hope you don't have to change your memory card, so you get that all figured out before you get in there at the crack of dawn, so that you don't have to deal with that. The battery maybe, and clothing. You know how they always say you can wear layers? Bag that, it never gets warm enough. It's always cold. So you're gonna have warm clothes, hats, gloves. Even if you're not a hat person, it's a good idea to have a hat and ears, you know. The ears just get really frozen. Thick boots. Do you know how cold that ground can get? If you're sitting there and you're not moving, and you've got any kind of shoes on, you know how cold it gets. But now if you've got boots on and one pair of socks, and the boots don't have a good sole, nice thick sole, your feet are frozen and you're sitting there thinking, I am doing this for what reason? And I'm taking this bird picture for what reason? And I'm dying and this is really not comfortable, so get a pair of good boots. The ones that are thinsulate and have everything in them to keep you warm, and then you add the extra socks, and oh, by the way, the feet warmers are a good plan too. Hand warmers of all varieties, and we've tried all different varieties. I got one electric one this year I'm gonna try, instead of battery operated, and see if that works. Blankets or some kind of sleeping bag to cover yourself up, because as you saw when we were in the box, that wind is vicious, and we had vicious winds across all of those prairies. So when you've got that blowing in your face and it's coming through the bottom of the tent and the side of the box, you're miserable. So you're gonna bring something to cover yourself.
When do we leave?
But you're doing this because you want this picture and it's coming. The reason you're doing this.
When are we going home?
You're spending a good 30 minutes thinking about why am I doing this.
Do
Anyway,
you have to hike to those spots with all that gear?
sometimes. So in which case you set it up the night before
Oh.
and hope it doesn't blow over. And you hope
And you can find it again, yeah.
Or you can put it there.
Yeah.
And some people do
I don't
that. Or you can camp in your vehicle there. I mean, they're all solutions. You look for solutions, anything to make it easier. You're gonna be in there a long time. So you don't drink coffee, you don't drink hot cocoa, you don't drink the bottle of water, no orange juice, but you can have some liquid. So very little, because that's a lot of time to be in that blind up to 5 hours. And guess what you can't do? You can't get back up.
Hey,
Mhm.
Yeah, so you're gonna sit there like this for quite a long time. So even though we have all these solutions for women and the men, it's always they got a solution. It's not easy. So yeah, you can have your little porta potty in there if you can fit it in there when you get in the tent. You're gonna see if there's room in there. But basically, you don't want to deal with it, so you don't drink. You just have a little bit. A little bit of water helps. So you got to get there 1 hour before the birds. So that means you're there in the dark. You got to be quiet. Good luck. You have to not talk to each other as you're trying to set up everything, and the tent is falling over, the chair, you can't find it, the tripod won't fit, all the stuff that goes wrong. And you got to have your headlight on there, the one with the red light, but you can't see anything because it's a red light. It doesn't go very far. You get it, because you don't want to scare the birds. Remember, they're already there. So you can't cough or sneeze. Well, you do anyway, but you don't try not to. You can't talk. And the worst thing is to be in 2 or 3 tents next to each other and you got one chatterbox, which is not me, I'll shut up. You cannot talk because you'll disturb them. And if it's not those birds you'll disturb the other coyotes and other things that are out there. So you can whisper in the case of emergencies, but you certainly don't want the tent next to you hearing you. We had one of those. They were telling all sorts of stories. It was not good. So you don't talk. You could be there very short, half an hour, and it's over. You can be there for 5 hours, and you don't know what it's going to be. When it's really cold, you keep thinking, can we go for the 30 minutes? That's when it's the 5 hours. Now, when you get in this blind, you can't have your camera outside the blind. Why? Because the bird will see you. They're actually not too interested in you, but they'll see you. So you have to keep your camera, your lens, inside the blind. Well, believe me, when you see all this action going on, you're getting in the hole and you want to get right outside that hole, you don't even think about it. So you have to position yourself so you don't get stuck. Now, if you're 2 or 3 in the blind, how are you going to work it so this one doesn't fall over that one when they're trying to do this, and who's going to get the side window and who's going to get the front? You can see the dog. So you got to think about those things. You can't leave the blind till the birds have gone, all of them. So when I told you they all left at once, that's great for the sage grouse. But those chickens, man, they hang around. A few of them are still there. You think they're never going to go away. A bunch of them fly out. And next thing you know, you've got a hawk that comes over. No birds. Hawk leaves, birds are back. And this goes on for 2 or 3 hours, or up to 5 hours. Finally, they give up and the birds all leave. Right. So first, we're going to look a little bit at this lesser prairie chicken, and this one has been the one that's had most of the chatter about it in the last year in terms of its endangered species status. Things come and go, and it'll be interesting to follow what happens this year as we get new administration and new approach to wildlife. But this one weighs about 1.8 pounds. So he's certainly not going to make a Thanksgiving dinner. He's the smallest of the western grouse. He has feathered legs. It's cold where he lives. It's windy where he lives. So he's got feathered legs. He's a brown buffed color, as you can see with the barring, and he's a little lighter in coloring than is the greater prairie chicken. Yeah, but you look at this chicken and you say, how am I going to know this one from the other one? And when you see them together, it's not always obvious. But anyway, that's what he is. He has these pinnae feathers. See those feathers sticking up above his ears? So you'll see in some of the pictures where those feathers are hanging down. Then when he gets really excited, he's ready. He's gonna show off. He wants that chick to notice him. He'll lift up the feathers like this, straight up in the air. The tail feathers will come up, and he will prance and carry on to try and entertain the female. The females walk around investigating if they're interested in any of them. And if they're not interested, well, he's still busy showing off. But their females are all looking for the one that's going to be the one for them. And once they've had their action, they're gone, the females. So you end up in the end, you only have the males showing off with each other. And usually it's the young males, because this is where they learn how to be a male. You'll notice over the eye, the yellow comb. So when they're in breeding season like this would be very yellow. And his particular sac is kind of red, right in through here. And this is where he's going to breed, and you're going to hear him stomping around and cooing, almost like a chicken. Yeah. Here's some examples. If you look here at the bottom one, you see the female right here. And there's the male sniffing her out. She's letting him sniff, but she's not really too interested. And up on the one on the left, you have several of the males getting ready to demonstrate to each other and to joust. Was this one for the video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Mhm. So, it's okay, you can.
Pretty good light. Pretty good light.
Yeah, it's a little later in the morning. So you can see they jump up high, they attack each other, there are feathers flying every which way. It's not really to hurt or kill the other one, it's to show off I'm stronger than you are. And theoretically, the female ought to think the one that's the strongest is the best. I don't know how they actually choose, but that's what we think they do. So the bands that you a researcher at the Kansas Lake Treks, the Audubon, Kansas Audubon Society, she has put them on to study them. So these are not captive, but they're wild, but they're being studied, so they've been banded. Okay. And now we're going to get to the sharp-tailed grouse. He looks very different from the chicken. And the sharp-tailed grouse, you'll notice that he has a different set of feathering and a different set of coloring. He has in here one of these purple gunnel sacs. He's going to blow up when he's really in heat. And he'll blow them up and you'll see them very purple. His feathers are a little more reddish and darker than are the prairie chickens. He has a white belly, whereas the prairie chicken all have bars on them. And he has a spiked tail. So see how that tail, when he's getting ready, he's got it up in the air. It's not a fan, it's a spike that sticks up. There are actually other feathers on the side, but he pulls it up into what looks like one. He's about almost 2 pounds. So he's bigger than that lesser prairie chicken. This is 7.
Why do they go to these places? There's a certain type of plant or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So each of them you see eat something different. And so you've got to look. This is. You get some kind of picture. So we're going to look a little bit at the courting behavior. So here you see the female on the right, and almost, yeah, right. It's almost bland relative to the male. Same coloring, basic coloring, no pinnae here, at least that they're not going to raise. And then the male getting ready, he's going to get down there. He's going to get low, and he's going to come and get her to sniffing. And she's just, come on. I'm not interested, okay? So here's an example of what happens. You'll get the males competing with each other to get her attention. She's not falling for it. She will just keep going on to the next one. And then we get to the greater sage grouse. So once again, a very different bird. This is the one we started with when we were in Utah. And this one, they're near threatened. And again, depending upon which one and where we're looking, these are very different again, almost prehistoric looking in the head when you see them up close. They weigh 4.2 pounds, so they're big. They're 26 to 30 inches long, so you're looking at something significant in size. They eat sage, so they eat the leaves of the sagebrush, but they don't eat the seeds and they don't eat the wood. Like I said earlier, they can't digest it. So they're the ones that give the chicks the bugs early when they're born, and then in 10 days they quit, no more bugs. They often, when it gets to the end of the mating season, they will locate themselves closer to water because they don't have enough of the plant life to get the water. The chickens don't need water. They get it from the plants and the insects and so on, but not the greater bird chicken. Okay. There's a video.
Forget the Roadrunner and Coyote. Let's just take cartoons of this guy.
It's just fascinating, and you're hearing them, and we call it the booming. You're hearing them. They lift up those yellow balloons, right? They lift them as high as they can get them, and then they, and you get that noise. And meanwhile, they're chuckling, you know, making their racket at the same time. And they're not necessarily moving much. They're standing here and doing the display, and then they'll waddle over to another one and do the same thing and do this display. Okay, next. Yeah, so here you get a little closer view of the male with the chicks, the hens all hanging out, and they're waiting one after another to have their turn. Not proud. And once he's finished with all of them, he's done his duty, he's finished. They don't live very long, 2 to 3 years maximum. And then it's over. So you wonder how they learn how to be a male and how to be a female in such a short period of time. They don't mate. The first year, the young males don't mate. They just joust. It's not till the second year, and then the third year they're gone. So the greater prairie chicken, this is again, a different species. And the greater prairie chicken, notice their legs are bare. There are no feathers on them. So they're not in the same location where they need the feathers, where it's as cold. Oh, you can almost tell, right, that there are no feathers here, almost. They weigh about 1.9 pounds to up to 2.6 pounds, so they're bigger. They're near threatened. They're about 17 inches long. So again, yeah,
Christine, it looks like you used some stock photos and also your own photos for this.
no, they're
for
all
this?
ours.
You shot all of these?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure whether you're planning to talk about camera settings or anything, but I'd like to know that
We can
along
get
the
to
way.
that. We can get to that. I want you to get in the tents.
It has to work for that information, yeah.
Better check it out. Anyway, they too have an orange comb over the eye, and you see pinning sticking up, so you know they're ready to do their thing. They also like tall grass, and they do fly. So you asked me earlier about how they fly. Well, here you're looking at it. It's not the same kind of grace as some of the birds we see, but they do fly. Okay. Well, these are some examples of how they jump. And so when there's a flyer in the back that you can look at some of what Sandy does, and you can actually go to Ray, Colorado this year for a weekend if you want, and actually do some of this filming. It's really fascinating. Okay. And then we have the Atwater's prairie chicken. So the Atwater's prairie chicken is the one that is only being raised in captivity. They found a few of the birds that have been released into the wild have produced, but a lot of them don't make it. So it's a real major do to try and figure out how they're going to save these chickens. And off we went to Texas this year to try and see this Atwater chicken. Good luck. Well, I think we were female and Californians, and so it was very hard to be taken seriously. We had to make all our contacts on this trip. What we did, and we're fortunate to make an arrangement with the San Diego Zoo, Houston Zoo, that has a captive raising program on the NASA space site. So off we went to study them at the NASA space site. Yes, they were captive, but at least we got to see them. And we got to study all the various stages that they go through up until they lay their eggs. So we saw that part. In fact, there they use these bantam chickens to sit on the eggs because they're afraid if the Atwater chicken sits on its egg, then it isn't going to turn out as well if they use these alternative chickens. And they ship the eggs around and they ship the chicks around. So there's several places, one of them in Oklahoma, which we'll try and get to see this year, a couple of them around the Dallas area where they have these raising programs and that they ship the eggs and the chicks around. They release them primarily at the Atwater Prairie Chicken National Wildlife Area, which is a couple of hours out of Houston. But you really can't see anything. There are a couple of private ranches, go ahead, a couple of private ranches where they are, but we couldn't get the ranchers to agree to see us, so we'll try again. Here's some other animals and birds that you typically see on the Lex, and typically doesn't matter which one and which bird, they're there. You've got the coyote, the meadowlark, the harrier hawk, or that's their nemesis, is the harrier hawk. And you get nice hawk pictures because they fly low over the chickens. Well, some chickens don't even pay any attention to them. They have enough of them flying over. You'll have the horned lark and then the pronghorn. Okay, next. So all of these populations are in decline. And we said, okay, that's interesting. Well, how are we going to publicize the chicken? We got all these pictures in our cameras. Our hard drives are stuffed. what are we gonna do with all this information? And we decided the thing we need to do is to start getting the message out about what's happening to where we live. Well, you either care about the environment or you don't, and if you do care about the environment, then how am I gonna get your money? So every year we get to about the 30th of December and somebody wants your money, right? They're all like this. We get to the Wildlife or Nature Conservancy, doesn't matter, pick one, they're all like this. Well, who are you gonna give your money to? On what basis are you gonna make your decision? We just said, well, that's kind of important to understand on what basis. And if we're selling the environment, these chickens are really sexy for selling it, right? So from the grassland standpoint, you see that we are losing vast amounts of our grasslands, that they are the most threatened ecosystem on our continent. When you drive through the west, if you're on your way to Bosque del Apache or you're on your way to Yellowstone and you go through some of these areas, you see it. You don't need anybody to tell you. 1.3 million acres of sagebrush is lost every year. When we lose that and the sagebrush steppe, we lose the sage grouse. Well, what do you care about the sage grouse? And that's the argument. How are we going to make that so it is something that is interesting to where you decide that's really important? 32 million acres of sagebrush is left in North America. Well, it sounds like a big number, but it really isn't, especially when you consider how many acres one bird needs. The Atwater prairie chicken needs 4,000 acres for him to have his environment. Good. And so we said, well, let's visualize the problem for this grouse. And as we're driving along, we see grouse don't like height. That's why they're on those places where you saw that looked like deadpan, nothing there. They don't like height because they know what's going to hide in those height are the hawk, right? So they don't want to be where the heights are. What do you see? Well, we got all the solar farms there. We got all the windmills. We've got these environments where we have all the wires for electricity and telephones and so on. Well, they're not going to make their little nesting area right underneath. And then you've got all sorts of agricultural plants that have come in and wiped out the prairie. So there isn't the grassland that they need. And you see these instruments that are just going by and digging up the prairies. And here's some more examples of oil wells. Everywhere we got oil digging. Well, they don't like that either. Makes a lot of noise. It's high. It's digging up the environment where they want to get their food. And some of this is areas around Kansas and going through Wyoming. A lot of cows. Well, it's okay to have cows if you have mixed prairie arrangements so that they're sharing. 1 year the cow gets this area and the next year the bird gets this area and so on. But if they aren't, and the cows are just running wild, which is what you see, well, they're destroying the prairie. The top is a quarry in the middle of nowhere. Farmlands that have been totally decimated, nothing's going on, looks like the old bowls from the Steinbeck movies, nothing's going on. Well, why are we not recovering it? And then we have housing and building and more land being encroached on by more of us. Yeah. The one on the top left is a little hard to see, but on the right is virgin prairie, and on the left it's been decimated. The top right is the barbed wire. The barbed wire is a serious problem because all these farmers that have and landowners that have barbed wired their land. And as you're driving along, you say, gee, I never saw so many fences with barbed wire. Well, the pronghorns can't get through. And theoretically, they can't jump, though they're figuring it out. Which means the animals are trapped and they can't get from the side where food was to the side where food is, and so they die. The one on the bottom left with that little sign on it. So for those sage grouse, a lot of these places have gone and now put these little signs, tags like this on the barbed wire so that sage grouse doesn't run into it. And here are the sage grouse in their environment. Another thing that's very important is we have these junipers, which are called red cedars in the Kansas area, but it's basically a form of cedar. And the cedar trees, you see how they populate? They're all over the place, and the next thing you know, you have a forest. Well, the sage grouse the prairie chicken can't survive in that, neither can the sage grouse. So these programs are manually going and digging up these plants. Why are they there in the first place? Well, because we weren't managing the grasslands. And so you see a female on the left and the male on the right with the berry, with the berry. So these trees will be next to each other, as you see on the bottom left, creating more trees. So that's a real problem. They're invasive species. Next. What about drones? Well, we've done some studies about drones, and there's a certain height at which it doesn't bother them too much. And then there's a certain height where it really does bother them. So basically, Jackie's study is showing that we really don't need to be doing drones over these lakes. We need to find other ways to get images. Lots of resources and lots of resources we've come across, ones that you can find easily as you can go into the Cornell lab, and has lots of images and information. Napadal Powelthong is here in the bottom right was one of the real sources for us in the beginning on these sage grouse and the prairie chickens. He's written a seminal work. He was doing his studies out in Missouri. The Kansas Les tricks. So I didn't tell you in the second year, as we took off across 10 states, not knowing what we were doing. Sure, we had everything down because we read the 2 books. Actually, I read the 2 books in the car as we were going. And so we ended up at the Kansas Les tricks in Kansas, and really didn't know what we were doing, but we signed up. Best thing we ever did. Because now we got to film the Sharpie, the greater, the lesser. We were in blinds. We were with all the people to do something about birds. We were also with the birders that knew nothing about photography, but okay. We had an opportunity to really learn about these, and we were in an environment where there were a lot of the birds and people that studied them. So best thing we ever did, if you get a chance to do it, it's in April, Kansas Les tricks. Really worth going, not very expensive, other than getting there, but a good opportunity. So this little video, you can't really see it, but anyway, they're all different kinds of organizations that work with the nonprofits and the non-governmental organizations to try and help birds, help the prairies, and so on. And so this is where we started connecting with all of these organizations next. And now we're down to the question, who am I going to give money to? The one with the bird that's really exciting to look at? Or this cheap grass that's taking over, like those junipers, that's taking over the prairie? I mean, I don't get too excited about looking at pictures of grass. Especially when you're going in the winter, you can't see, there's nothing green. It's all brown, it all looks the same to me. Not true, but it does. But that bird, now that. And it's one of the things we discovered with the Atwater's prairie chicken is they were not marketing it because remember, it's top secret. There are only so many left, so we're not going to talk about them. Well, that means they're not getting the money they need. Whereas if you use the bird to market, the protection of the land where they live, and you use it to market with, look at this sexy character, it makes sense. And so it's worked for us. Next. We've had all sorts of opportunities to write and publish. And there are things that you could do that we go chase down where these, nobody gives you money. It's really hard, but you work. where we can go to get the news out about our various activities. This last year, we were in contact with the North American Grouse Partnership. That gave us an opportunity to be in their fall annual report on our Atwater's prairie chicken. It also opened all the doors that we couldn't get open without them. So there's a really interesting things to do next. Then we have all sorts of speaking engagements and contacting and more contacting and talking to people like we're doing tonight, photography clubs, Audubon, wherever we can have a conversation. I did the first chat with the Indians on photo technique was PSA activity that takes place out of Kolkata. And that's where I first presented what it was we were doing. Fascinating. That's how we collected people from around the world and permitted me to go see the sandy grouse in Dubai, which is not the same species, but what did I know? It got an opportunity to start connecting with that international community. So we look at all sorts of environmental partnerships between the universities and the various organizations that are working with them and the nonprofits that are working with them, local agencies, and we have a lot of them here. Local agency like the Audubon that's here in San Bernardino. We put together our little blog, and it's a way to keep ourselves organized. Probably needs a little more help, but it keeps us organized. I put some cards in the back. Chicks on a grouse trip. Maybe that's why the Texans didn't take us seriously, but everybody else enjoyed it. So who knows? And social media, perfect place. We get the word out all the time in social media. So those are places to start. Next. So like I say, I put a flyer in the back that Sandy said she's going to be in Ray, Colorado, where the greater prairie chickens are, and it's really fun to watch. She's doing a workshop up there already, and she said, well, if you want, she can hang around for the weekend and do another 3 opportunities to go out and film. So if it's of interest to you, take the flyer, take the card, we can get in touch and connect with. Okay.
I'm sorry, what was the location of that workshop, Christine?
Ray, Colorado, WRAY. So it's just outside of Denver,
Okay.
an hour and some. And she does it on a private ranch. You know, there are several of them. They have these birds around, and so she's gotten a really good farmer to work with. And you make a little donation to their local nonprofit while you're there. But so it's an interesting experience. Honestly, it's a lot of fun, even if it's cold. It's not as cold there as it was in some of the other places. So the weather's almost okay. You won't die like we were doing in the fall. So that's worth a try. And follow us on our little blog and see what information. We put stuff up there all the time on what we're doing and where we're thinking. And it's kind of, you'll see I put my little book in the back that we use as we're traveling along to keep track of what we're learning, because who can remember? And then this is a way for us to keep ourselves focused. All right, next. So now we're going to move the tents. And you're going to have an opportunity to see what it is in nice comfort of this room that's not cold, but you have to get little. If you didn't bring a camera, but you have your cell phone, that'll work. And what we're going to do is we're going to get in this, can't see in, right? The birds can't see in, but you can see out. And we're going to take pictures of these flying eagles that we are pretending are grouse. So you'll see what it is to sit. You could turn them on, it's good.
Yeah. So I would, we're gonna move the TV to the left. If you want to start on the left and then 2 by 2, get inside. We got cameras to hold. There's chairs inside. Just have this is a full time or a full immersive opportunity for you. So take advantage of it. And it's not below 0.
Go around the left.